Good morning.
Good morning, Wayne.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. I'll be back in 1 second. The others all have more quality.
What?
The others, if it's only a 3 pound zone. Because we really not, we only do how much? I was thinking about somewhere between.
I don't know.
We need probably 15 pounds. That'll be like 5 bags.
8 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's a very small seed. And it's very expensive. But they've got some other good things in here. They got the crabgrass stuff. I'm back.
So it looks like Attorney DeLisi is on, but we don't have them on the agenda.
Okay.
Should I promote him?
Yeah, he's gonna be talking probably about the permits and stuff.
Oh, hey, Lisa, Wayne.
Hi, how are
Good
you?
morning. How
Good
are
morning.
you?
Morning. Lisa, I thought that we were on the agenda today for just a discuss. Well, I mean, I thought that the commission had us on for a discussion about gravity versus force main.
Oh, yeah, that was it. I thought you were on for the other thing for next week.
Oh, yeah, I think we're on for the next meeting as well.
Okay.
I think that's what I recall seeing, but I really have nothing better to do, so I really enjoy just kind of hanging out and watching your meetings.
That's a good one. I'm not sure if I believe that, but.
Jeff, they are more friendly than the public meetings from the planning board.
Oh, my God.
You did an excellent job, but it was sad that you got cut off and all these other comments that they made against you.
Yeah, well, thanks, Wayne. I do appreciate that. It is, just putting all that aside and the drama of it, which doesn't really bother me. It probably would have bothered me about 10 years ago. There are a lot of problems that I see with the proposed articles. I mean, the point I made was they want to change 4 definitions in the zoning bylaw that are used 390 times throughout the document.
Right.
So,
When you told them that, they said they just blew it off and stuff. And I'm saying to myself,
too much work to evaluate that.
or even to think about evaluating it. Can we take this off a recording for a couple of minutes until the other members come on?
Just remind me to put it back on.
Hi, Paul.
Top of the morning.
Hi, Paul.
Good morning.
Hi, Wayne. Lisa. Everyone.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Lisa. Tony Omobono would like to join us from Tetra Tech, and he's having trouble connecting to Zoom.
Oh,
Do you have any guidance on how to connect or beyond just hitting the link?
He can, if he says join meeting, he opens up a Zoom window, and he can say join a meeting and type in the members rather than
Yeah.
selecting the link.
Yeah, he's.
And the number,
You're suggesting using the webinar ID number?
yes, the 820-4847-0891.
And password, Mark.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna tell him now.
If he's on a cell phone, he could just call in as well, right?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, he's connecting. Maybe he has internet connection problems at wherever his location is. He's not in this office today. He might be in the Boston office.
How many offices do you guys have, Mark?
We have several hundred or thousands. We have 21,000 people in the company.
Yeah.
So we're international, national company. A lot of supporting people.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to have all of that in place, all those resources available to you.
Yeah, we have a lot of resources. Big company, we do a lot of work around the country and also around the world.
Hmm.
I myself have traveled overseas a couple times to the Philippines on a very, very large projects.
Hmm.
So I don't see him joining.
No, not yet.
I'll call in. But we have several offices just in the New England office, in the Massachusetts. More than a dozen, put it that way, and just in New England.
It sounds like this project's in good hands.
757-678. Bill said he's been on for 10 minutes. I think he might be on a different meeting. So I sent him the numbers.
Maybe that's where Mark is. I mean, where Tony is as well.
No, I think I sent him the same link that was.
Oh,
sent
here's
to
Bill.
me.
There you go.
Good morning.
Hey, Bill, can you hear us? Let me text him.
There we go.
There you go. Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us, Bill? We heard him for a minute there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, now I'm on. I don't, God,
Can you
Okay.
hear us?
I was gonna move to another state.
You would think it would get easier, but
Well,
sometimes.
the nor'easter isn't here yet, so you should be
No,
okay.
ridiculous.
And we
Ridiculous.
should be without power in Cohasset in about an hour.
Yeah, somebody will sneeze and we'll lose it, so.
Yeah.
All right, is Wayne? Yeah, Wayne's there. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. Anyway, why don't we call the meeting to order at 10:09, present Bill McGowan, Lisa McGonigal, Wayne Sawchuk, Paul Kearson, and Dan Coughlin. And first order of business, why don't we see if we can do something on November the 9th. Does that sound good for everybody?
Is now.
Okay.
Oh, here's Tony too.
Yeah, he just texted me, so I told him to ask to be a panelist. If that's okay.
Yep. If he's on if he's on a phone though, he won't be able to. So I'll just say allowed to talk. Oh, maybe.
Oh, there he is now coming
Oh,
up.
there we go.
Okay, good. Thank you.
There's just
Lu-
some kind of
yeah.
delay.
Lisa, is Brian going to be on this call?
I just texted him. I believe he had another meeting this morning. But I just texted him.
Okay, so we want to talk about gravity versus pressure. Who would like to start on this one?
I mean, I
Well,
could-
I leave it up to Mr. Coughlin if you'd like to start. And then,
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion before at several of the meetings. It's basically, what is envisioned to be the least intensive as far as maintenance costs down the road. And I think that the general conclusion that was arrived at was basically the force main would probably be the least costly to the town in terms of future O&M costs. Wouldn't have to access it very much for inspection or cleaning, manhole repairs. There'd be reduced castings and basically, we have several force mains and pressure mains in the town. And for the most part, there's not too much there as far as long-term O&M versus a gravity sewer, which, potentially can add in II issues as well and require more regular maintenance in the state right of way or state highway. So I think the preference for the sewer commission was basically the pressure sewer. So I reviewed the plans and basically sent those comments over to the CJC group and had some discussions. And they're still, I think, on the side of doing gravity. And I indicated to them that they could certainly entertain that again with the commission. Maybe doing an alternative analysis and providing any new information. At this point in time, we don't have a lot of information on site. We don't know, the size of the pump stations being proposed, the size of the wet wells for those pump stations, the type of pump, the capacity of the pump. Are they grinders? Are they solids handling? So we don't know a lot of information on site. Possibly some of that can play into the alternative analysis, but at this point in time, we don't have that. So all we have is basically an alternative for us for gravity versus pressure. And based upon the town's costs, it appears that the pressure is a recommended alternative. And I'll turn it over to you, Mark.
okay.
Before you go, Lisa, could you let Donald give him some rights in case he needs to speak? Looks like he has his hand up and he texted me saying he can't participate.
Oh, I can't see him.
He's on there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But while you're looking at that, Lisa, I didn't mean to disrupt the flow, except that the big guy should be on.
I can't see him and I can't see a hand up.
Yeah, I can see it here, yeah.
I can see it, yes.
You actually have him on as a panelist, so.
All right. I don't understand why I can't see him. So,
Well-
Bill, Wayne, or Paul, you guys are co-hosts. Can you see him? Because
I can see him as I can see him on as a panelist, yes.
So Jeff, what did you need us to do on as a
Well,
panelist?
It would be nice if he could be promoted into the conversation, should he be able to speak.
As a
and
panelist, he is.
Should he need to speak, it looks like he's now off mute, so maybe he's all set. So Donald, can you say something?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you. Okay.
Very good.
So All right, sorry. Thank you all.
Dan,
Might have been- yeah.
I have one question for Dan that came up actually from Jason from the DPW department and stuff. And that was, would the gravity sewer give us a better handle on what the flows contain in terms of things like grease from a restaurant or something like that, by actually being able to visually and maybe take samples or whatever in that capacity, versus having everything go through a pressure pump that gets discharged and you can't tell where that's coming from. And so if there were additional properties added on, you'd be able to check and see the flow. The second part of it is if it ever came to a larger pipe needed, which would be a pressure pipe, to extend this in either direction at any time, you could almost use the gravity pipe as the sleeve for a pressure line and then change it over in the future, just as a thought.
Potentially, that's true. You know, as far as converting it at a later date, depending on what size you have, but certainly an 8-inch sewer, you can get probably a 6-inch HDPE in it as well. And the manholes, you know, you could basically put the fittings in there or whatever for vents and pour it up. So, I mean, that's a possibility as far as future conversion. In terms of the grease and trying to track down, you know, that's definitely true. But, you know, one of the things that we had talked about is basically having flow monitoring and also a sampling point of the flow as it leaves the property. And that should be on the site as well. So there should be an opportunity for the commission or someone to go in there and sample the flow. In other words, grab a sample. That doesn't tell you a lot in terms of long-term O&M, oil and grease. But I mean, the other aspects that we also included in here was basically regular reporting from the site in terms of tank maintenance, in terms of pumping records, and also the sampling requirement.
Right,
So-
but a question, Dan, does having a gravity sewer preclude monitoring?
If you had a gravity sewer, well, the question would then become if we still need some type of flow monitoring for the flow.
Right,
And that's best done not in a gravity situation, but in a pressure situation. It's much more accurate to measure flow in a pressure pipe with a mag type meter versus trying to do an open channel flow measurement, which is really, you know, it could be plus or minus 10% if you're lucky. So it's not very accurate if you're trying to do it in an open channel flow. So I would say if you did gravity, you could basically have, you know, put in a sampler in the gravity manhole and sample there. But you'd still have the issue of flow measurement that would have to be addressed.
yeah, Brian, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, hi, Bill and everyone. Sorry, I jumped on a little late. So I just wanted to say that my preference is gravity on this installation for several reasons. I emailed before. I think the fog for inspection and maintenance, it's easier. Gravity is sized for pretty much all future flows where a pressure pipe, you need to kind of get those flows designed up front. Also, we have the pitch, we have downhill, we'd be pumping downhill. We have enough pitch for gravity. And I mean, the main one is really the fog. If we went with pressure main, basically the flow would not present itself to atmosphere until it got over to Pleasant Streets, which is, you know, if things started presenting over there like fog sticking to the walls, then, you know, it'd be hard to pinpoint and trace it back. And that's basically it. So I just wanted to put that in there. Thanks. Oh, sorry. One other thing on the protection of the water supply. If a pressure main leaks, it's going to exfiltrate. Likely, if a gravity main leaks, it's going to infiltrate. You know, both could be watertight, and you know, but you know, we know that at times pressure mains and gravity mains both leak. So for protection of the water supply, gravity is preferred as well. Thanks.
I have one other comment, if I could just, and then I'll be quiet for a minute. And that is, can all of the manholes be off the pavement? Because it keeps saying that they're, I saw the distance of the center lines and all that stuff, but I was under the impression they were going to try to get down the shoulder of the road, not into the highway itself. So that's my only question.
And Mark, do you
We,
have any
we do
design
try
on
to,
that?
yes, so we do try to keep the gravity line to the shoulders of the area, and that's preferred by MassDOT to keep the manholes outside the wheel path. So we've done that. We've designed it in a fashion to put it on the shoulder to keep it out of the general path of traffic. So I hope that answers your question.
There's still a little bit in the travel lane though, from.
They're in the pavement currently
So,
right now.
Yeah, I think Wayne's comment is, can they be moved further off?
We would have to take a look at it on either side of the roadway. Right now, since the water main does cross, or it is believed to cross from the easterly side to the westerly side, or vice versa. So we transverse the proposed sewer main starts off on the easterly side and then crosses where the water main crosses, or believed to be crossing, to the westerly side of the roadway.
Have
Can
any
you-
of the state agencies reviewed the tentative plans
Yes,
and
we
given
have.
have they given an opinion on it?
Yes, and they're comfortable with the design right now. They understand there are utilities in the pavement. That's very common to have that in the state right of way. There are different types of utilities, whether it's electrical, whether it's sewer, whether it's water gate castings. So they're comfortable. And as to terms for Mr. Coughlin's note about the number of castings, this is not an unusual number of castings for a gravity line. The gravity line is spaced out typically of 300 feet spacings, and that's common in engineering practice. Right now, we have about 10 castings in the roadway pavement section, spaced again at 300 feet intervals. So with a force main compared to a force main, you're going to have castings out in the roadway, whether it's for access, whether it's for blow off, whether it's for gate valves. So the number of castings are almost equal. And in the opinion of MassDOT, which we had a discussion with them, they're indifferent. They understand castings are part of the roadway system, and utilities do go in the roadway. In my opinion, let me just back up. So Mr. Coughlin asked or commented about he hasn't seen the site drawings, and this is a complete package. So this package, what we have in front of us for sewer improvements Route 3A, that's a separate package right now for the gravity system. That is only speaking towards the work done in Route 3A, because that is within the right of way. The commission will see in the near future a separate package for the site work proper. And that site package will have a pump system. It will use the commission's required piping system, SDR 21 for piping. And that's part of the regulations. It will have flow meters put on the force mains within the property. So that's coming down the road as a separate submittal. And the commission should see that in the very near future. But let me speak about the opinion of the gravity versus force main. In this particular case, where you have 26 feet of elevation change in a downward gradient, consistent, this lends itself to all good engineering practice to be gravity system. The homeowners, if anyone would connect to the force main, they would require a pump, and that pump would have to be sized to push the water not only off their property, but push the water within the right of way or the force main to be installed on Route 3A. So therefore, you have a lot more friction, you have a lot more power, you have a lot of energy consumption. And some of the pumps may not be able to be single phase. They may need 3-phase. So that's a concern that I have. So in my professional opinion, for the ease of access, for the ease of maintenance, for good engineering practice, I have recommended a gravity system in this location.
And let me just follow up, I guess. I think I counted 10 or 11 castings for the gravity. I think we would only anticipate probably about 3 for the pressure sewer system. So there is a significant drop in the castings. There are still some though. In terms of grease, the big thing that we have at this site has not been very good grease practices, I think. At least that's what appears to have been the issue for the existing on-site system. So from our perspective, it's very important that we address the grease on-site before it even gets into the sewer system. And that's why we had talked about regular maintenance and regular reporting for those tanks, to make sure the grease tanks were pumped, to make sure the septic tanks were maintained. And, if we can get it out on the site, I think that's a much better solution than trying to look for it later on in the gravity sewer. In terms of the downhill, he's correct. I mean, typically when you have that type of change, gravity sewer is certainly a reasonable alternative and probably the more recommended in most cases. But what we're looking at here is trying to reduce the amount of access the sewer commission and its operators have to go and access the right of way, and also long-term O&M. And in terms of long-term O&M, I still think the pressure is a better alternative in terms of cost. In terms of the abutters, it's true that the abutters would have to pump into a pressure main. As it is, a lot of the abutters on one side, the north, I guess, east side, would probably have to pump anyways because they're so far back from the roadway. There's a possibility where the ones on the southwest side could potentially get in by gravity. But in terms of the size of the pumps and the type of pumps, E1s that we use throughout the entire system would have more than enough capacity and head to pump into that type of system. So again, it is kind of a preference, but what I had asked before was basically an alternative analysis, but that alternative analysis really has to consider the on-site facilities. And it's really not good to look at it piecemeal. You really need to find out. You can't approve a system if you don't know what's going into it. And one of the big concerns we have is a lot of the facilities on site or some of the facilities on site are going to be reutilized. And, this is not new construction in a lot of cases. Tanks will be reutilized, pipelines will be reutilized. The sewer commission needs to know the condition of those pipes, how it's being set up, what's going to be reutilized, and obviously the size of the pump stations. Because that all comes into play as far as how it enters the system. So I think we really need to get a more definitive submission on the on-site as well, in order to consider it as a whole.
I'm going to ask a question basically from a novice engineer. To me, it looks like we're looking at two separate things. One, we're looking at the conveyance methodology going down CJC to the pump station on Tupelo Road. And the second is we're looking at the site. And in talking to some folks that I know that have been past sewer commissioners on the Cape, their opinion, I'm not going to share it here, but I mean, their opinion was the biggest problem that they saw was exactly what we're talking about with fog. And a lot of, I'll say malls on the Cape that are in a kind of a sandy area, they just go out into a septic field and there's a lot of, and they clog up quite a bit. And I'm wondering and I'm presuming the answer is yes, because I've been told that this does occur, is that a lot of the fog mitigation can be done on site and we can require it before it even gets to either a gravity or a pressure sewer. And so why don't we do that? Have that taken care of and addressed on site, and then we make a decision as a board as to what the means of conveyance is to Tupelo Road. Just
So if I may speak to that. So first of all, let me just talk about the on-site work. So I know the folks here have not seen the on-site design yet, but to Mr. Goughlin's opinion or approach to this. So the design of the on-site work predominantly proposes new work. So we have a new pump station for both 380, building 380, and we have a new pump station for building number 390. We do utilize the existing grease traps for building 380. And in speaking to Mr. Sasko earlier, those grease traps have been maintained and inspected by independent, actually been inspected on a monthly basis, have been inspected by an independent engineer. So, and I think Mr. Sasko will agree, he will maintain those grease traps in a proper manner. The force mains do carry or propose a flow metering system for both pump stations. So we have that on site now. And you'll see that in the near future, probably later today, perhaps. So we worked over the weekend to prepare these drawings and we're ready to submit. So these pump stations, they pump up to the proposed manhole on the backside of Stop and Shop and then flows downhill or gravity down to the Pella Road pump station. And as for access, let me just speak to that a little bit. It's my opinion that providing manholes every 3 feet provides the town more access for cleaning and maintenance and inspection than a pump station or a force main. Where you have force mains, you might have access every 500 to 1,000 feet. So if you do have a clog, it's more difficult to clean a clog in a force main because you have limited access than you do with a gravity system where you have access every 300 feet, where you can send a jetter down there or a cutter or an inspection camera down there. And it's very common to do. It's part of every town's, every municipality, every district's O&M plan to clean and inspect gravity systems on a routine basis. So let me turn it back out for the floor if you have any questions on those opinions.
Mark, just quick, are those grinder pumps, by the way, that you have on site?
Pardon me?
Are those going to be grinder pumps you have on site?
Yes, there'll be 3-phase grinder pumps, yes.
Okay, I know you had.
They'll be commercial grade. We call for SDR 21 piping, which is the commission's approved force main material. And also the gravity line for the Route 3A, we propose SDR 35 PVC pipe, which is the approved piping material for gravity systems by the commission in their regulations. And it's an accepted industry piping material. So we're not changing the wheel here. We're using industry standard products. We're using industry standard manholes and pumping systems.
Yeah, just not to diverge too much, but you have basically 3 pump stations that are all being discharged to a single manhole. Did you look at the possibility where your 2 new pump stations are discharging to a single pump station and then coming out with a single force main?
We
Reducing.
looked at many different options and we decided to go with a pump station per building. Now, we're charged with providing pump stations for building 380 and 390.
Okay. So in terms of what I was thinking is the 2 pump stations going to the one for Shaw's or whatever, Stop and Shop, whatever, Shaw's. And then having that pump out.
Yeah, that's a separate charge for Shaw's or Stop and Shop, the building 400.
Okay.
So I'm not going to speak to that right now. My charge is to provide pump stations for building 380 and 390.
Okay.
Mark, on the gravity line, you seem to have hesitation in terms of whether or not the water main crosses 3A and where it does. And I have a question as to, have you gone to the water department and picked up a copy of the plan that they have in their possession of the water mains going down 3A and the locations thereof?
We have, working with our licensed professional land surveyor, Chapel Associates. They have done the base plan mapping for us. They've done some topographic mapping. They went out there and did the utility research. And then in addition, I have contacted MassDOT on my own just to confirm and see if there's any plans are available for that area. And unfortunately, there is very limited information on that water main.
Did you go to the water department and get a copy?
I did not personally go to the water department. My surveyor has done that.
So where is the water main on 3A?
That's a good, I have spoken to the town engineer about this, and there's not really good records of where the water main is. I believe it's an AC pipe, asbestos pipe, so it can't be traced all that accurately. With you put a tone on it and then you can trace it. We've talked about using ground penetration. That's not going to really work in this location to find out where the trench is. So what we do to address this, we call for test pits. and this is, again, this is industry standard. We go out there with the, when we get approved access to go out there in Route 3A by MassDOT through their access permit application, we go out there, we locate the water main. We physically shoot the elevation and location. So we know exactly where the water main is. And then we can bring that back to the table, look at it to confirm that our sewer design will work by gravity method. Now, if we have to make an adjustment, that's fortunate in that location. The hill does start to see, it starts to get a little steeper in that location. So we have the ability to make an adjustment.
So Brian, you had your hand. Can we hear from Brian on this? I know, Brian, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I just wanted to talk about the operation and maintenance of the gravity line. So it is standard practice. The castings in the street are not as big a deal as, it allows for just an operator to go out with his lights and some traffic cones set up to pop the manholes, see what's going on in there as far as flow or fog or anything. You lose that ability with the pressure main, the inspection ability. And so going in the street and popping castings to look at what's going on is a benefit. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a con to the
Okay,
design.
yeah, it's not a detriment to this, to your ability to do it.
Yeah, the other thing on the fog, I believe the same systems are going to be used. The grease traps, which have been said to be maintained. The reason the on-site system, I believe, has failed is from fog getting into the SAS and clogging it up. So there's,
Okay.
I believe there's going to be going into the sewer main. So with on-site treatment, we should treat it as much on-site as possible. I'd say to maybe even putting in grease traps in series before it gets to our main. But having the ability to go into that gravity main and look at where it may be coming from is a great benefit. And sampling is really just a snapshot in time of what the flow looks like. It's not, whereas buildup in pipes kind of shows a history of what's going down there. So that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, I've read through everything that Brian had sent. And of course, Dan had given us a really good pros and cons on both systems and in several emails. Mark read yours as well. I'm in favor of the gravity system for most of the reasons that Brian has conveyed. I think the concerns that we've heard today were primarily not with the gravity system, but with what's going on site on the properties themselves, which are easily addressed by the agreement that we had put into place about a month or so ago. So I'm not as concerned on the gravity side versus force main. I believe gravity is the best way to go, especially with capacity. And the last 2 months we've been talking about, pumps and additional pumping station. We've talked about alternative, having backup generators and all kinds of energy issues. Our biggest cost right now is electricity for the department. So adding any of those things to this system is not favorable in the long term. And where gravity is somewhat of a lower maintenance, as described by Brian Joyce, I think I'm in favor of gravity fed. I think that any concerns we had about previous non-conformance on the property can easily be addressed when we see those site plans for the property, Mark. I think we could put some provisions in place that would satisfy some of the issues that Dan had brought up and what the commission has talked about over the last several months.
Just a point of clarification, Paul, whether it's gravity or pressure, there'll still be 3 pump stations on the site. So
Right, on site, yeah.
power consumption still would be there to some degree.
Can I make a comment on the on-site?
Sure.
Okay, with DEP jurisdiction, for the last 3 years and most recently, we have a civil engineer check the grease traps are pumped every month and a Title V inspection is done every month on all the systems. So that's one of the requirements from DEP, that every month the systems are checked, the grease traps are pumped every month, and a civil engineer observes what's there, and a Title V inspection report is issued every month.
Right, a Title V inspection report, though, typically only looks at failure, whether it's failed or not, doesn't really look at some of the other aspects. I think our concerns are, one, that the grease traps continue to be maintained after DEP's out of the picture, that those tanks themselves that you have on site and the pump stations are all pretty much watertight, and that the condition of the existing sewers you're going to reutilize are also in good condition and watertight. So there needs to be an assessment. I haven't seen it yet, if your engineer has reviewed this already, but there needs to be an assessment of the condition of the existing facilities that you're going to reutilize.
Okay.
So, Mr.
that-
Consul, let me just comment on this. I know you haven't seen the new drawings yet for the site. We do call for the existing lines, the limited lines that we reused from building 380 to be inspected. We do call for the grease traps to be inspected on the plans. So you'll see that on the drawings. So
Yeah,
we
I
do
mean,
have- so we call it out. It's covered, but we understand your concern about the grease traps. We understand your concern about reusing existing lines. So that point is taken, and it is covered.
Right,
And
again,
it
the
will
big
be,
thing
and
is
it
to
will
make
be,
sure
and it
that,
will be addressed.
just to make sure they're watertight. I mean, that would include riser sections not leaking,
Yep.
maybe inserts on some of the covers.
100% on board with that comment.
Yeah, and just a good point, Dan, on the water tightness. The gravity line going down the street 3A, all those, obviously, those manholes and risers would have to be watertight as well. And
And,
those were all in the provision of the contract that we executed.
and it is the gravity line system, and all the lines on the site or off-site material will have to be inspected to the conditions of the commission's regulations. So they do call for testing, they do call for mandrill, and they do call for pressure testing. So those lines will be inspected.
so if I could just ask one other, sorry.
Go ahead, Brett. Brett.
One other thing on the gravity, I know the commission needs to probably take a vote on that, but if you hit a something in the way of the pitch of the pipe, the onus will be, on the developer to move, either up or over the water pipe or whatever might be in the way. I just want to point that out.
Does the board have do we have any more comments from anyone, or, because we do have a couple other things we want to talk about today?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the gravity system.
All right, do I get a second?
Second,
All right, Bill McGowan will vote for the gravity system.
Paul Kears, gravity.
Wayne Sawchuk, gravity.
All right, anything else, guys?
I'd just like to see when Mark could start to present these plans that Dan has asked for some of these on site. Now that you know that it's gravity, if we can move forward to conforming with the provisions that were set in the contract and provide some plans for the site itself that addresses the issues that Dan had brought up.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other thing too is in terms of doing test pits on the AC pipe, water main, obviously there's a lot of concerns there, preserving the water main so nothing gets hit. You may want to look at maybe acoustic sounding to locate the main. You might have to generate a hydrant flow or something in order to do that, but that may be an alternative as far as tracing that line.
True. With that case, when DigSafe is called, the town is obligated to locate the water line out in the field and mark them out to the best of their knowledge. From there, we can go back and do a test pit, whether it's a vacuum assisted excavation test pit, that might be an option. If there's very little confidence on the location. So we'll address that at that time. But you can't go out on the road and do a test pit until you have an access permit.
Yeah, vacuum excavation is really the preferred method for that pipe.
Agreed.
Okay,
Agreed.
be there 5 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, folks. And
Thank you
we'll
very
get the
much.
drawings to you, and and be happy to return and explain the drawings on the site.
Okay, very good.
We'll
Thank
work on wrapping up the offsite material or the offsite drawings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Let us go to easements. Lisa, do you want to ease us into easements?
Ease you into easements. So when I went on to the Norfolk Registry of Deeds to look for some of the easements to get the book and page numbers for the grinder pump program, I was having a lot of difficulty finding any of them. And I contacted the registry, and they said, yes, that type of material going into the Registry of Deeds is difficult to find. They're typically labeled as grants, and I was able to pull up some grants, but in easements, but they didn't appear to be for the grinder pump program. So I'm not convinced that any of them were actually recorded. I did put in an email to Rod Hoffman because when we first started with this program of releasing the easements, I sent Rod all the easements that I could find in any of the little places where anything would have been stored for the sewer department. I did find book 1 of 2. But in reading that now, because now I know more than I did back then, it looks like they're not really for the, well, it is for the grinder pump, but they're dated in 96, which doesn't really doesn't mesh with the grinder pump program. So
Would have agreed with North Cohasset.
Pardon me?
96 would have been for the North Cohasset expansion.
Yeah.
So those, basically all those individual easements granted by the homeowners for the grinder pumps and the force service mains on their properties.
Those are the ones that we're looking for?
That's the 1996 era easements.
But so Lisa, you're saying, I mean, just to be clear, you're saying we can't find any? The easements aren't there or recorded?
I found some, but they were dated. I thought I was looking for like 2009, 2010 timeframe for when
Right. Little Harbor.
started.
Yeah, I think it would probably been around 2001 and 2. Basically, when the expansion, central expansion was pretty much completed.
Okay, I'll keep digging. So you're saying that these, I found this book 1 of 2, North Cohasset sewer easements. There's probably about 30 of them in there, where I think we have 300, over 300, we have 351, something like that. But these, like I said, are dated in 1996, and it was just like Forest Ave, Forest Notch, so it's one specific area. So Dan, you're saying that these are for the grinder pump program, these are the ones that we want to release?
Yeah, we had several projects, and for each project, we had basically easements on private properties. And there should have been some in the era of about 96. Maybe some of them could have been recorded in 2000 or so, 2001 for the central expansion. And then obviously we had some additional easements that potentially would have been done a little bit later than that when Lily Pond was done, which was right after. So maybe 2001, 2002.
Okay. All right, I'll keep digging, see what I find. Now that I know that these are part of it, so these actually have the book and page number. So that'll make that section easy. But some of the ones that are in this book, we didn't have on our list of releases. So.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to read them to make sure, but I mean, they could also be water.
Okay.
So I guess my question, Lisa, to, you know, and maybe to Rod if he was here, how would we have gone through this exercise without him finding that there was indeed an easement on the property? I mean, I would have thought that he might have done a title search or have somebody in his firm do one to be sure that, you know, we're looking for gold and there's gold actually there.
He had
Just a
to have
thought.
done someone in the office had to have done that in order to describe the release of the easement.
Yeah. I
So-
mean, I mean, rather than you doing it, I would ask him to send proof of where these things are. I mean, it's a
Okay.
very simple, and that's how I'd phrase it. Because we can't find it. You tell us where to go.
Well,
Yeah,
did
we had that conversation over a year ago about getting the books and pages for each one of these. So I'm not sure how far we went on that, but he should have it at least, I would think.
Well,
Right, and I think that was what it was, that we had asked, originally he was going to do it and his firm was going to do that.
Yeah.
But, and I was collecting them all and getting the majority of them, and then I was gonna send them all to him, once they were all signed. Then a conversation I had with Wayne led me
Uh-oh.
to think that I would, you know, just kind of look for them and get the page in, but it's not as easy as it sounds, because,
Well, first of all, when they sent the documents over to be recorded, they get a copy back that says what the book and page is. So someone
Yeah.
had those easements that, you know, the copy of what it is that they filed goes back to the person who filed it. So there's got to be, you know, if we're changing law firms, we want to get it from the law firm that has it now, and because I don't know how whether it'll be more difficult in the future to get the
Right, I
answer
mean,
to that.
and Wayne, to your point, I suspect that if he did that, he's already billed us for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
I-
think
do
so.
do we know who recorded them before?
It would have been the town. I would have thought maybe the assessor, but I'm not totally sure. This is like,
Yeah,
this is Tutela area for me. I do remember there was a big pile visually. And those were sent over for recording purposes. I don't think we got them back. I think the town would have got those back after recording.
yeah, I didn't get anything. Well, I couldn't find anything. I
You
only,
check with the assessors to see if they have any references.
I've been dealing with working with the assessors. They don't have anything.
And I ran across an easement some easements for the sewer work that was done years ago. And some of it says temporary easement and someone says permanent easement.
Yeah.
How long does a temporary easement stay on in terms of time? Or does a temporary easement have to be released also?
Temporary easement doesn't have to be released, in my opinion. I'm not, your lawyer, but temporary easements typically have a stipulated period. And it's usually for the period of construction, which would include the guarantee period in case they have to go back and do additional work. So it's typically 1 year after the completion of construction.
Okay. So there's some sort of rule that says that somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, there should have been some indication of that in the easement itself. If it was related to construction, and then basically you have a construction contract that's related to that, and that extends for a year
So
after.
20 years or so would be okay to say that the temporary
Yeah.
easement isn't there anymore.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, I could.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lisa, I think, just give Rod a call or send him an email, probably better, and copy us and say what's going on.
Okay, will
All
do.
right.
Then the only other thing I have is under other business, 90 Black Horse Lane. They did put together a deed restriction and they sent it. I forwarded it on to you guys this morning. I think I had forwarded it before, but I
Yep.
also sent it this morning. Should we have a vote on that, whether to approve it and who will sign it?
I make a motion that we approve the agreement as written.
Has it been approved by council?
Oh, no, I didn't run it by.
Yeah, good point. We should probably have him look at it, yeah.
Okay,
And then we can,
Let's approve it now if in fact it goes through council and they say, okay. So we don't have to have a second vote, have it go weeks longer.
Okay, so what your amendment is, your
My motion. is
Yes,
to
your
approve
motion,
the Agreement.
which has been amended, right? Go ahead.
Well, it hasn't been amended. The motion is to restrict to 4 bedrooms, the number of bedrooms that are on the house here at 90 Black Horse Lane. And in this provision, it says everything that we'd want it to say. That if in fact they ever want to go more than 4 bedrooms, they have to come back to us and pay an additional fee. This is that whole thing of having a room that's marked an office, having a room that's marked a playroom, whatever, and yet having 10 rooms and only calling 4 a bedroom, that in fact is all they want to use as a bedroom. I think we've got another, I mean, this is far better than what we've been doing with changing the plans with the building inspector of taking out a door, that a door could be put right back in next week versus, and then the key thing on this is when you go to sell, it's going to say how many bedrooms the house has, right? And if you have 5 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms, it's going to be more valuable than if you have 4 bedrooms and an office and a playroom or something else. So this sort of protects us for getting fees in the future and allowing people not to have to shell out another $37,500 going in that they don't need, that they shouldn't have to.
So your motion is to approve the deed restriction
To
as long
approve
as it's been approved by our
Council.
council.
Yep.
Okay,
I second.
Okay.
All in
those-
favor? Bill McGowan, aye.
Paul Kearsarge.
Wayne Sawchuck, aye.
And Lisa, you'll be giving a copy of that to John, the
Yeah.
building inspector?
Yeah.
So he knows what it is?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Would you give John a copy of that, that deed restriction?
I will, yes.
Okay,
Now, the reason for the urgency is that the building permit is held up because,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I'll get that
Sure.
over to the attorney today.
Right,
Okay.
great, thank you.
And then, is anybody local that can come and sign it?
I'm
looked like there was
around,
one-
I mean,
Yeah, there's only one person that has to execute on our end.
I could sign it. Actually, I can go by in about 10 minutes if that's okay.
Okay, well, we got to get it approved by the attorney.
All right. Just give me a call when you do it, right?
Okay,
come by.
I can always run it by you as well.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else?
yes, I have a situation that I'd like to have a discussion on. We could do this at the next meeting or whatever. And that has to do with allowing people to finance the fee that we're charging as a betterment when they're making a connection. And there was all sorts of things saying that when I asked different people like Dawn and other people in the assessor's office and stuff like that, is why can't they put this on their tax bill and pay it over 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? For the sewer department today, having funds going into an account that is going to provide interest and sort of spread out these one-time bonuses that we're sort of getting, meaning we can't predict on how many people are coming that are going to pay the fee for any period of time. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow in terms of 5 people could come in and say, I want to connect, I want to increase my this, or I want to do that. And so therefore the money isn't, we're not planning on the money for our budget, but it would be nice to have this as recurring revenue for the next period of time, because it doesn't hurt us. And then, because if we go into the betterment account, that's already set up. So I just don't understand why we can't do that. And I don't know if we can't do it, how we're going to finance the 400 CJC property with the money that he's going to be paying us back over several years. So how is that going to happen? Or how is it going to?
So Don Piat had no insight on that?
He said-
I know I talked extensively with him about how the mechanism was going to work.
But if he doesn't, when I went to him and said, the people that bought this particular lot want to finance this because of the the happens to be the Diab Lane lot, happens to be the one that the people thought that all the permits were in place, and now they were faced with $37,500 more, plus of having the cost of putting it in and stuff like that, that they said, why can't we finance this in this fashion? And some people say, well, just go to your bank and have them just add it on the thing. Well,
Right.
this isn't necessarily possible sometimes.
Well, that's the path of least resistance for that department, right?
Yeah, but it's also for, I mean, I would think that for somebody who is buying a house, this is just another attribute to the house. I mean, it would be an easy thing to add on to the mortgage, and it would be much easier for us because we don't have to worry about it. I'm just wondering, my only concern would be who's going to be chasing this stuff in the town?
It's all automatic. Once there's a lien filed by the town for the amount and it's on your taxes, if you don't pay your taxes,
All right.
if you don't pay your mortgage and mortgage don't pay your taxes, you're in trouble. And so it's always going to get collected, because the property will ultimately go, if it went to foreclosure, if whatever it had to be, that's a lien on the property given by a municipality, and that's like the best thing you could have. But I guess the thing is, if you said, well, we could use that extra money to do this, this, and this at the plant, then that's sort of a different story. In terms of if you anticipate that.
Right, well, the town would pay the sewer commission the 37.5, and then they would collect the 37.5 over time on the property through taxes. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, that it would be that when the money came in, we would get the money. That's how I would think it's done. The Old Colony plan here, which financed the house on Pleasant Street, they got a check from the town of Cohasset. Let's see how this worked. So I guess we ended up getting the money, but they're paying it back through Old Colony.
Right.
But as it turned out, it was only for septic system repairs and things like that. And Old
Okay.
Colony admitted, I sent a copy of this to you, that they erred, and it should not have been used for this purpose. And therefore it went back, and I sent a thing to Don, but it's like, I'm just not getting any action on why you can't do it or how you can do it.
So Wayne, specifically on the folks on Diab Lane, have they gone to their bank and said, hey, can we add another 37 grand on to pay for the sewer?
I didn't even ask the question about that. Okay, I think that I have not spoken to the people. I've only been talking to the real estate broker, and I don't know what the circumstances are of the real estate broker, whether or not they're in trouble because they didn't advise the buyer of this, this, and this, and they're looking for an alternative that would make everything go well.
I would think they are in trouble. I mean, that's their job to know all the permits and all. I mean, I'd be a wild Comanche if that happened to me.
But I'm thinking of different things that could come up, that it's going to be a significant amount of money for whatever it is, the developers or whatever.
We will just check with Don Piata to find out what kind of mechanism the town has in place that would allow somebody to pay an unexpected expense over time.
Yeah, or an
Well,
expense, either one.
Yeah.
In other words, when the sewers went in, every single person was assessed, for instance, in Little Harbor, $28,000, boom, automatically. They had nothing, but they had, I guess, they all got 20-year assessments, but you could prepay it if you wanted to. At any time on sale, or the person says, okay, I don't want this.
Maybe that's the same mechanism we use here.
That's what I'm wondering, is that, and by the way, we're going to be coming up with a situation with, like there's an application that's going to come in. I don't know if it's come in yet, for a house that's right near the funeral home that has a failed system that's for sale now. It's for sale, so they're going to probably ask for relief on that situation. And I don't know if that's what's going to happen with that. In other words, is the different circumstances happen. But we're going to be likely expanding going down South Main Street. And we're going to come in with the whole thing of costs and how that's going to go. Are those people going to be paying it all themselves? What's the amount it's going to cost in today's dollars to extend that main? Is it going to be $50,000 per betterment, or is it going to be a funding available where the government is going to put in half the money, therefore the cost to the residents is going to be a smaller amount? But it's one of the things we're going to look at going forward.
Would the difference be with, I'm sorry, Bill.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the difference with CJC and the betterment program was the infrastructure versus a sewer privilege fee. Right? So the betterments were all based on building the infrastructure for the sewer. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
So
And CJC is going that way because he's building the infrastructure, but he'll still pay the betterment. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's kind of a different, it's like apples and oranges on that one. I think it would be good if we brought Dawn in here for our next meeting and we
Yep.
can have this as a topic and go over it. Because there's a bunch of like, I don't know what the right word would be. There's a bunch of options of where we could go with it. I mean, I don't think we want the sewer department to be administrating this, but I don't know if the town wants to do it. But I think there's got to be a municipal loan service somewhere in the United States. I mean, we can't be the only town in the country that does this, that would be
Right.
able to say, okay, somebody has an issue and they want to pay it over time. They pay it over time with this guys, but we get our money and let them deal with it.
That's right, yeah.
Or we do, yeah. I mean, there's got to be somebody like that that can do it. There's got to be like an Old Colony or something like that. So,
well, right now, if I don't pay my sewer bill after 60 or 90 days, I'll get a demand. If I don't pay it after 6 months, it's going to go on my tax bill. And when the bank pays the taxes and says, oh, there's not enough, there's a line item on here that says this is what the cost is, that's when everything gets paid and you get a call from the bank and they all upset. But they have so many things that the town can just go after you for just charging you and having that collection capability, that having something that the person signs, the only thing is it's like a loan from the town. And the loan from the town to build the sewer is being paid off by the people that are making their yearly payments to pay it off at the end of 20 years. And when people pay it off earlier, sometimes that sort of screws up because they've got extra money now and they can't prepay off the loan. It has to go for the 20 years that the bond was issued for. So, but
should we also be thinking about, like, if say everything works out for, like, say this person where John agrees there's a mechanism in place, what would prevent, or what would be the parameters on who's applying, and like what would stop everybody that wants to connect to sewer from not paying it all up front? Because right now, like if this is all approved, you'll be setting a precedence, right? Of the town will be is able to finance you through your taxes.
Right, so any new construction, everyone could just apply for the interest-free loan from the town on sewer.
yeah, and I don't think that'll
isn't
fly for
interest-free.
everything. No, I think we're better off having a third party, as an option, come in here. It won't be interest-free, certainly. And in fact, it might be more money than you would pay if you did it through your own home mortgage or something. But I think, to Wayne's point, if we have an option that we can give to people, why not? But I don't know what that option is at the moment.
yeah, but Paul, it is an interest-free. The town.
Yeah, I know, it's paid over time, but yeah. But I'm just saying, with the town, it's not, it's not going to be at market rate, that's for sure. We just.
Well, Dasco's apparently, and I saw a thing that you passed through the things, 4% was going to be the amount.
Yeah, but the town's being charged 4% and they're collecting 4%, so it's in that zero.
The town is paying 4% for any, for,
That's what he said,
Who said that?
Don Pia.
Usually they recommend 1.5 to 2% above what the town's paying.
Yeah, I tried that.
Wow.
It was one of the first things we talked about. That's
don't
how
know
that's how Mass Growth Capital does it. They go usually 2% over prime,
Right.
but that's not what occurred in the
Where
agreement.
did it get lost?
yeah. But if that agreement was just done now, that 4% is just, now is that, is that our cost of the money?
It can't be. I mean, you can see loans out there in the twos. How would that be, you know?
Well, you'd have to ask Don. It's a good reason to have Don come in, as you suggested.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be some sort of, hardship or unforeseen expense category that people may qualify for, as Wayne suggested in this particular case, as opposed to new construction. So that's something we can talk to him about.
Yeah, but yes and no. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to give hardship to those who buy a house and flip it all the time. I mean,
Right,
that's, we're subsidizing their profit.
Right.
Well,
But-
don't forget, the bank is going to, in most cases, when you sell a piece of property, the bank wants you to pay off the balance of the betterment when you're selling it. And the buyer doesn't want that obligation going
Yeah,
forward. They're
right,
getting the
right.
benefit of it
Yeah.
because it was something that should have been paid by the other person.
I
So,
think if they know about it, that works perfectly, but I've been seeing a couple of them that came through. Said, I'm paying something that I'm not sure what it's for.
That's not, yeah, but that's, because somebody goes in with one eye closed and signs a contract, that's not our problem.
No.
Right.
I mean, oh, too bad. See you later.
But at minimum, we could probably put together some of the bullet points here that you've discussed and get it in front of Don Piat, see what he.
Yeah, why not?
we
I
should
think
be
we should.
looking at our upcoming budget at the same
Yeah.
time, so we could,
Yeah.
in terms of where do we stand with money? Where do we stand with the different accounts here that are out there?
Right.
So that it's not just a single 2-second thing when we can't do it or we can do it or whatever.
Yeah, might as well tie it into our budget meeting with him.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay.
I had 3 quick things too, hopefully. We got the MPDS permit back and there were some changes that were good. Basically, in response to our letter, some reduced testing, some reduced inspection. But generally the permit was pretty good compared to what everyone's been talking about for the last 15 years as far as, increased nitrogen limits and everything else. So right now the permit's been issued. There's 2 things you can do. One is you can do nothing and potentially EPA will assign you to that small system permit. Or you can basically write them a letter and say you want to be included in that small system permit. And there's 2 modes of thinking there. If a permit is controversial to some degree, or you feel like you may want to dispute it later on, then people usually just do nothing and let EPA force it upon you. But the issue is, in terms of our facility, we're the only saltwater discharger in that small category. Everyone else is in brackish waters or fresh waters. So I just have a little fear that maybe, there's a potential where they would not assign us to that small permit, even though it looks like they will. So from my perspective, it may be good just to write that letter and get included on it. It's certainly a lot less stringent than what we had anticipated EPA to issue. And there are a lot of advantages to being that small category.
I thought we put that in the last letter we sent them.
Well, I had drafted up a draft letter. I'm not sure if that ever got executed and sent in. I think
Yeah, I
we
thought-
talked about bringing it up
I
at
thought-
this meeting.
Yeah, I thought we had a letter that went out like we had a meeting on a Tuesday and it had to be out by Friday for that.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that was basically the comment response to the original
Yeah,
permit.
yeah.
You might be thinking of,
Yeah,
which, ended up resulting in some of the permit items being.
right, right.
But this is basically, they've issued the draft or the final permit. If you want to be included in it, EPA may put you in it at the end of the year. But there's always a possibility they wouldn't put you in it and they group you with another group because of the saltwater discharge.
So is there a comment period for that, or is that just
Not a
something
comment
random?
period. It's basically there's a sample letter I sent over to Lisa. Basically, it just says you're going to be included. You'd like to be included in that small permit.
Trying to confirm we're going to be included?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in this case, it's not that much that's controversial, so I don't see a
Yeah,
legal appeal to EPA to dispute it. So just to make sure that we're included in it, I would just send a letter. And at least has a copy of that draft.
Can't hurt.
Now, is it time to start thinking about negotiating flow to Hull? Another year has gone by and we have less, time on the end of our agreement.
Yeah.
And we could have to make a decision on Hull Street if they, for any reason, did not want to work with us. And I think that we should have some sort of a conversation.
Well, as I agree with you. As I've been asking folks in town, and Chris and others, like, have you had any conversations with Hull over the whole regional thing, because I keep getting asked by 3 or 4 folks on a monthly basis what's going on, and I don't have an answer for them. So I think that might be a catalyst for us to say, okay, are we going to get into another 10-year deal with these guys, and what's that going to look like? Yeah, I agree.
Well, we've been waiting for town manager to town manager meetings to take place and tell us something. We've had none of that. And we've asked almost every meeting or once a month anyway. I know Brian said he had checked with the town manager and it was still radio silence. So as a sewer commission, do we want to reach out to their sewer commission to find out what's going on or get any updates?
Well,
Yeah,
what we could, go ahead. Sorry.
You have a 30-year IMA. You usually try negotiating that as early as you can. You could simply write them a letter and ask them for renewal terms for another 30 years. If anything would be different.
Well, we can do that. I think just looking at it sort of tactically in a negotiation side, I think it'd be better to have the town managers talk and see what kinds of relief or not are we going to get. I suspect we're not going to get anything. And knowing how past conversations have gone on the regional, they're not going to give us any quarter, and then you're going to pay the rate that they're paying, which I think is 14 something now or whatever. It's pretty high. And then whether or not they whack the town with the capital assessment as they did on the other one. So
and so Hull put rates in, they publish rates for 3-year increments. So I think this was the last year of that 3-year increment rate that they had published. We would need to check that.
Yeah, they said something about going up, each year.
That's right. Yeah, it was 3 years.
I think that was fairly recent, more recent than 3 years ago.
I think, Lisa, you sent us the ad they ran in the paper on that. Yep.
Yeah.
The current IMA currently says they have to treat us the same as their own residents. And obviously it's not great.
And they surely do.
Probably would. Would you guys agree that we ask Chris to come to our next meeting?
Yeah, we just find out what's going on with regional sewer.
And
find out what's going on with Hull. Yeah.
Now, the alternative for, I don't know if it ends up being just Hull Street, just sort of the flows that we're giving now, to pay the same rates and stuff, that's not too bad. But if we need to send more flow because of Stasco or because of other things going up South Main Street or whatever else, we sort of have to do something about it. And that the other alternative is, do we look more seriously at a satellite plant in the Beechwood area or someplace on the other side of 3A that handles a certain future flow?
Yeah.
So
if
our plant can't be increased, and is there any technologies today that we can use at our present plant that can increase flow?
Yeah,
well, it goes back to our wastewater management plan. I haven't seen the last one that was drafted, but we should probably take a look at that.
Yeah.
That's That's one of
shooting
the
from
other,
shooting from the hip without the wastewater management plan. So I don't disagree with Wayne. These are all provisions. I know that one alternative was to run the pipe from the harbor, whatever it is, a mile out. And that was going to be like a $5 million endeavor. And that may solve the problem other than a second location at Beechwood. So I'd rather spend 5 million on that than 35 million on Situate.
I bet you knowing how to deal with the folks that manage the harbor, both state and
Yeah.
local, state and federal, that'll take you 30 years before they even look at it.
But, like I said, it's all part of that wastewater management plan that we can put together. I don't know where the last one is.
the last
But
one,
we certainly,
the last one we did was 2006, and that was
Okay.
basically for the Little Harbor expansion.
okay,
And one of the other topics that I was going to talk about was South Main Street. I mean, we should probably start that into the works again, and that included an additional facility plan amendment that we'd have to talk to DEP about as far as scope. But certainly in that, we could look again at the satellite treatment. But that would be basically a facility plan amendment to add South Main Street primarily. But it could also look at the on-site facilities as well. So, I mean, that's something that I think we should start thinking about as far as schedule and timeframe, as far as implementation, planning process. And what I was going to say is it'd be nice to get like one member of the board for coordination purposes for that. And that way we can start working on that. And typically it works out well if we have a targeted member of the commission instead of waiting every 2 weeks for a meeting when we probably have a full agenda anyways.
I don't mind doing that.
Well, I got another one too, is the rules and regs we need to resurface again. Both of these things, both South Main Street and the rules and regs, need a public forum and input session. So, I mean, that's something that we're going to need to reactivate a little bit in terms of public hearings and public meetings, potentially workshops for the South Main Street residents. So we really have two items in there that I think we should be moving forward on, rules and regs in South Main.
Well, for South Main, we're gonna have to go, I mean, it's gonna be an expansion of the sewer district, so it has to go before the town to get approval on that.
As far as final appropriation for construction.
Yeah, I might tend to want to get approval before we put a whole ton of work together and find out, nope, it doesn't happen. Yeah, but I agree on that one. As far as the rules and regs, if there are rules and regs, I mean, it sounds stupid, I suppose. Why do we need public input if we're utilizing our resources and engineers and what have you, and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. I mean, this is what we're doing.
I mean, it's pretty typical as far as if you're changing the rules and regulations of the board, that you have a public hearing or public meeting to discuss them with the general public and gain input versus trying to do it in a black box. At this point in time, we have additional changes on fog, especially, and updating some of the information we have in the rules and regs. It's just.
yes. You're talking about the rules and regulations that were published in 2000.
Yes.
Okay.
Updating these.
Yep.
And I know I've coordinated a little bit with Wayne in the past on that, as far as some changes. So again, I was looking for a coordination person for that as well, but I don't know if anyone based upon that wants to volunteer.
Not yet.
I don't mind still.
All right.
We've had a couple of meetings, but we didn't sort of have anything finalized.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a Zoom in 6 minutes, I guess it is, 7 minutes, something like that. So does anybody have anything else we want to go through?
Just to go through what we just talked about, we'll, for the next meeting on November 9th, we have CJC on, regarding.
Don't need it. I don't think we need it.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
The,
That was our discussion, Lisa, last week when when the attorney decided he was going to be on today's meeting, and I said, no, push him off to the 9th.
Okay.
So we're
He
done
wasn't-
with CJC. Yeah, they're to supply us plans, so Danny can take a look at
Okay.
them. Yeah.
So let's see, I have, we're gonna invite Dawn to address the financing sewer privilege fee.
Yep.
Also tie that into with the budget.
Yeah, any preliminary budget
pardon me?
items too. Any preliminary budget items he can send in advance would be good.
And then we want to get Chris on the agenda as well.
Talk about regional sewer.
Well, it's more, we want to have Chris on for finding out what's going to happen and how with the,
Yeah.
I don't think we should contact our sewer commission shouldn't contact their sewer commission without going through Chris and the town managers.
I don't think
Okay.
the sewer commission will even tell us anything. They'll send us right to,
Right.
Phil.
I think politically it doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't work too good.
I agree.
We're going to, Dan, we'll discuss Dan's PFAS letter at next meeting and vote.
Okay.
On that. The regional will invite Chris to come to the next meeting.
I'd like to put approving that, you're talking about approving that letter?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, if we can put that first on the agenda. You know, some of the things that are simple, we should get out of the way before we get into these long discussions over the budget and
Yep.
Chris Senior, so.
Send it to everybody.
Oh, I know
The
what it's been doing. If I
the
could just want to,
30-year IMA with Hull, is that tied in with,
Chris Senior,
Chris?
yeah.
Yeah.
And while Brian is on the line too, have Lisa, you or Brian heard anything from the Cook estate?
I've not heard anything.
Okay.
Brian, have you heard?
Not recently, meaning past week and a half, but I think they wanted to get on one of your agendas to talk about a hookup. And I guess next steps would be how potentially that might go.
Yep.
Deer Hill or Tupelo.
Well, whenever they call us, we'll put them on. So I mean,
Okay, I'll check with Pam Fahey because she's kind of the point person right now on the septic side of Board of Health.
Well, I can tell you it can't be the 9th because we're already booked and, unless those discussions are going to take 15 minutes.
oh, it's not. I mean, this is this is another CJC type thing because we've got to.
Yeah, it's gonna be a-
and it's got to go before the town.
Yeah, so I don't know, the next Tuesday would have been the 23rd. That's right before Thanksgiving. And then it would be after Thanksgiving, which is the 30th, unless you want to do something on the 16th with them, which is the following Tuesday. But I
Why
would
don't
recommend,
I start an email chain? I'll include Lisa and Bill and Pam. And we can get their thoughts on when they want to come in.
I would recommend a standalone meeting with them with nothing else on the agenda. It may take an hour, it might take 10 minutes, but either way, it's, we don't know.
Yeah, I
assume-
agree. And I mean, we could do it on another day. It doesn't have to be Tuesday. And,
Okay.
but I also, I think just for, I don't know, propriety isn't the right word. I don't want to be soliciting them to hook up. I want them to come to us. So, because that's the way it should happen. I mean, we shouldn't, I'll leave it at that. So,
Yeah, they should demonstrate that they've exhausted all other options.
Right, you need that to
Yeah.
extend it.
so, and the last thing, I know that, and I wasn't certainly going to bring it up during our previous conversations today, has the lawsuit that CJC had on the town, has that been resolved?
It was withdrawn.
Okay,
They couldn't get the executed agreement until it was withdrawn.
okay,
And then Wade is going to champion the South Main project, looking at additional plant amendments. Or look at on-site facilities. Wayne will also champion the rules and regulations updating.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, silence
Sounds
is
good.
approval. Silence is approval.
Yes.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Yep. Paul Kear, second.
Bill
Wait till I
McGowan,
check.
second. There. Yep.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All
All
right.
right.
All right, thank
Thank you.
you. See you later.
Have a good day.
Have a good week. Bye.